And welcome back. I'm Candace Gibson at MSNBC headquarters in New York, and it is a sign of the troubling times. Scores of people lined up at pop-up food banks, churches, and donation centers across the country. This as the government shutdown crisis stretches into a fifth week. For many workers furloughed or working without pay, the future is as uncertain as where their next meal is coming from.
The shutdown has hit home for low-income seniors in assisted living facilities like San Jose Manor here behind me.
We've worked all our lives. These are supposed to be our golden years. And here we are facing possibly losing our homes.
In Columbus, Ohio, FAA Aircraft Inspector John Jeffries is back on the job.
I'm out here to perform a safety function to help the folks out and to keep the aviation industry safe. But I would like to be compensated for it.
This is how Demita Van Cliff spends her days, making phone calls and waiting. But she's running out of time.
If I don't get an income within the next few weeks or so, I don't know. You know, I have depleted what little savings I had.
Demita's furloughed from the Food and Drug Administration. Her last paycheck came in late December. She's missed one, and her bills are piling up.
We need our money. We got bills to pay. People are facing all kinds of things by not getting a paycheck. So go back to work. Let us go back to work.
Many of the folks in this line have worked for the federal government for decades.
30-something years.
And don't know what it's like to go without a check. That's how Nicole feels.
I think I cry like every day.
And this mom who works for the IRS.
I have 2 sons, and they know, and I'm like, Mommy's going to stand in line today for food, you know.
Never thought you'd be here.
Never thought. This morning I prayed for compassion, that there would be some compassion from the federal government, the politicians. Have some compassion for us, you know, send us back to work.
You know, in previous shutdowns, we talked so many times about the impact on tourism, the parks and such. This is having impact on people's lives. And as the shutdown drags into its 30th day, the New York Times estimates unpaid federal workers have collectively missed about $200 million in wages. A variety of things we should note, from tax refunds to the SNAP program, often called food stamps, are in jeopardy. Today could be the last time SNAP benefits are paid out until the shutdown ends. The next round of missed federal paychecks for furloughed workers comes on Friday. And by that point, S&P estimates that the economic cost of the shutdown would have exceeded the proposed cost of the border wall. And also on Friday, the Administrative Office of the U.S. Courts is set to run out of funds. According to reports, without this funding, a number of civil cases are likely to be suspended. And then, of course, there's tax season, which starts on the 28th of this month. The IRS has recalled about 46,000 furloughed workers, but that's only 60% of its workforce, which means refunds could no doubt be delayed. And for what it's worth, we found another interesting fact about the impact of this shutdown. Pornhub is reporting that viewership in the D.C. metro has actually gone up during the shutdown. Covering all the bases. Well, still ahead, to impeach or not to impeach the case against Trump. And welcome back. In a scathing new editorial, the senior editor of the Atlantic magazine, Yoni Applebaum, calls on Congress to immediately start impeachment proceedings against President Trump before the special counsel concludes the Russia investigation. He writes, Congress can't outsource its responsibilities to federal prosecutors by delaying the start of the process in the hope that even clearer evidence will be produced by Mueller or some other source. Lawmakers are delaying its eventual conclusion. Better to forge ahead, weighing what is already known and incorporating additional material as it becomes available. That magazine article there getting a lot of attention. With me now is Rick Schenkman, and former publisher at the History News Network. Also Lynn Sweet, the Washington bureau chief for the Chicago Sun-Times, and my old friend Kevin Sorelli, who is the chief Washington correspondent at Bloomberg News. Welcome to you all. Rick, we'll start with you to give us a little bit of perspective. You know, we've been tossing around the I word quite a bit, but it's not something that we should be taking lightly, right?
No, this is serious business. This is really talking about overturning a presidential election. And just think of all the effort that goes into any presidential election. So this is really, really important. The problem, of course, is that impeachment is this antique relic from the 18th century that we have trouble implementing in the 21st century. So there's questions about what is an impeachable offense. People disagree about that. So this is not going to be easy. This is a very, very complicated question, and it's why people talk about it being a constitutional crisis when you have the president against Congress.
And Yoni, Lynn, in the article, Yoni continues to say that House Democrats no longer can dodge its constitutional duty and immediately open the formal impeachment inquiry into President Trump. Do you see some merit to what they're saying?
Well, with all respect to this article, which is very provocative, it seems ignore. I mean, yeah, sure, it's provocative. It's like saying fire the coach and then what's your next story, okay? Impeachment, as complicated as it is essentially a political process. And politically, you would want to wait to make your best case, which is to wait for the Mueller probe. My goodness, you also would want to wait for all the various now Democratic-controlled investigative committees on the Hill to do their work and see what they turn up with. So when you look for treason, bribery, high crimes, or other misdemeanors, which is the criteria set down for impeachment, you know that you have all the quivers lined up before you shoot. So it makes total sense for the Democrats to just keep doing what they're doing for now and not move ahead on impeachment.
Yeah, and Kevin, there are many who are saying even if the Democrats decided that they wanted to bring up impeachment, at least on the House side, it's as dead as the president's proposal on ending the shutdown on the Senate side.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, I think that Bob Mueller's investigative team has really done an impeccable job of staying the course and not getting bogged down by the tweets coming from the president or from progressives. I think that they have really crafted their message carefully to do an independent job. Case in point with what we saw from the provocative, to put it mildly, BuzzFeed report, which prompted the Mueller investigative team to put out a statement. So I think that, as Lynn correctly points out, the tension now within the Democratic Party between a loud and vocal group of progressives who are fired up and ready to have impeachment proceedings begin. Then you have, I wouldn't even call them centrist or establishment Democrats, but I would just say another large contingency of Democrats who, yeah, want to see the Mueller investigation reach its conclusion, but also want to make sure that they're doing the work of populists to get some policies through with their Democratic-controlled House of Representatives.
And let's be frank, by all assessment or what we're hearing, the Mueller report might come by late next month. In the meantime, Yoni tried to make his case for impeachment on Up this morning on MSNBC. Here's a listen.
You can forge ahead with lots of other things that Mueller is not looking at. His probe is confined to the president's potential dealings with Russia, and there's a host of other charges, from the president perhaps directing Michael Cohen to violate campaign finance laws to violations of the Emoluments Clause. All of these things form a picture. We're getting it kaleidoscopically right now, just little fragments, and we need to assemble it into one coherent picture.
So, Rick, I guess to the point, even if the BuzzFeed article was completely wrong, what Yoni Applebaum is trying to get across, and many other people are as well, who are calling for impeachment, is that they believe the president has done other things that are impeachable offenses.
I don't think that there is any question that Donald Trump has committed impeachable offenses. You cannot lie to the American people 7,645 times.
Is that a specific number?
Yes, that's what the Washington Post reported as of December 31st. He had either lied directly or he had misled the American public. I don't think you can do that over and over and over again and still comply with your oath of office, which is to preserve, protect, and defend the United States. Although there is a loophole, because it says to the best ability of the individual who's holding the office. Well, maybe Donald Trump is simply not capable of telling the truth, in which case the 25th Amendment ought to be implemented. But there is one other thing I want to say. While I do think that there are grounds for impeachment, I also believe that you should not go ahead with impeachment unless you are going to have bipartisan buy-in. If you don't have bipartisan buy-in, it doesn't work.
And Lynn, it looked like you wanted to weigh in.
Well, I wanted to weigh in to just lay out two things that I'm all about practical politics, and the chairman of the House Judiciary Committee, where impeachment would start, is not making impeachment an agenda item. So this is all just kind of back of the envelope talk. And the other thing is you need an extraordinary supermajority in the Senate to convict in a trial, and you would not get that. So you have to factor all that in and saying, should we launch an impeachment today? And it adds up politically to the answer being no, especially before the Mueller report.
And to be frank, we're exactly 2 years to the date from the next inauguration. There are many who are saying that impeachment is on voting day come November 2020. Right, Greg?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I would just say that I think two things. First and foremost, this whole conversation really puts together the notion that there are Democrats who are in office right now who better be listening to the grassroots, who better be listening to how fired up Democrats are at the base of the Democratic Party, because there is a lot of impeachment talk, and they're going to have to channel that energy, especially as a lot of these early presidential candidates get into the race, and they're going to have to stake out a claim on that, because the notion that come this summer, when you have more than a dozen Democrats vying for president in 2020, that's going to be a question on the debate stage. Do you think President Trump should be impeached? And that is just an illustration of how fired up and, quite frankly, frustrated many Democrats are feeling right now. But I totally agree with Lynn. We're a bit too far ahead of ourselves. And look, you got to wait until the Mueller investigation has concluded.
We can only hope that we'll have the Mueller report before the first debates get underway sometime this summer. Our thanks to Rick Shankman and Lynn Sweet and Kevin Cirilli. Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Well, still ahead, halftime show drama. Travis Scott says he's with Cap, but Colin Kaepernick's camp says, wait a minute. Negative. Calls for the rapper to take a knee or bow out of his Super Bowl performance. And the legendary singer Gladys Knight is now weighing in.